Well, I couldn't figure out how to get my hair into a mullet for this, so you'll just have to imagine it with whatever image you have of me in your head. Make sure I look majestic. Anyway, I want to talk about Mullet Mad Jack. But before I get into that, let me just say that the footage you see on screen is from me going through the game from the beginning with some unlocks that you get later in the game. It's not super spoilery, just an upgrade or two for a gun that you can get later on, as well as some extra items in the shop that don't really become available immediately. But other than that, I'm only really spoiling the first boss that you encounter in the footage that you're watching. Otherwise, everything else, story, blah, 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 that is not revealed in this video. Just letting you know for transparency's sake. Now, I've played Mullet Mad Jack before, kinda. It was a demo for Steam Next Fest earlier this year, or maybe last year, depending on when you're seeing this, because again, ahead of schedule, I'm kind of stockpiling these reviews and releasing them whenever I feel like. So for all I know, this could be February. Actually, I take that back. This is supposed to be planned for later on this month. So where did I get February from? Oh well, you get the point. Also, yes, you're still going to get the occasional reviews from games that are coming out on a month-to-month basis that I am interested in. So while Sulaco and Mullet Mad Jack and future games are all loaded in the chamber, pun intended, ready to go on whatever day I decide to schedule them for in the future, you will still get reviews for games that come out recently, at least for the ones that I'm interested in. So like Slitterhead. Major tangent aside, long story short, I very much enjoyed that demo that I played of Mullet Mad Jack. Fast forward to now, and I still very much hold that opinion. The main campaign, or the main mode where you're playing like the story of the game, is still on the shorter side of things at 2.5 to 3 hours, maybe 4. It really depends on the difficulty that you select, which there are a lot of them. But you will get your bang for your buck if you're the kind of person who's going to go through that main campaign and then play the endless mode that is included, with some options you can use to customize your experience to make it a little more difficult on yourself. With that said, if there's anything that I can say that gets a little repetitive, it's probably the structure of the floors. Eventually you get the idea of how many different combinations there are, and while you can't predict them, they don't exactly become more interesting after a point. They do get more difficult, there are more hazards, and it does open up a bit, I guess, if you count some of the more open areas in the levels. Not that you can really stop to explore, you only have 10 seconds to live. I'll get to that in a moment, but once you've seen all of them, you've seen all of them. That said, your whole point of it is to just adapt on the fly to each room and get to the end, get to the end, get to the end, get to floor, 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 and floor. So I don't think the environment being a little repetitive is a big deal. To go through a few extra tidbits, I really like the style of the game. Overall, it has a very 80s, 90s vibe to its, characters being the main operator talking to you, Jack himself, the princess, well, not princess, she might as well be a princess, but the influencer princess that you're trying to save. They all have the 80s, late 80s, early 90s, I don't know, you tell me, art style going for it, and I really think it looks really cool. Aside from the characters, the game itself, the environments and all that, have I guess I can only really describe it as if Synthwave were an environment kind of look to it. Very neon, very heavily saturated. For some people, their eyes might bleed, but for me, I was locked in. I was ready to go. I really liked the modifiers that you get at the end of each floor that you get from the shop. Some of the modifiers you can get are jokes, but most of them are really, really good to have, depending on what build you really want or that you're going for. I tended to build Jack with more seconds to his life, along with an SMG, with a 30% chance for bullets to ricochet, I almost said ricochet, to ricochet off of walls and stuff. And it was glorious. I love that. That was the build I essentially rocked for the rest of the game. Now you might build Jack differently, and I highly encourage that kind of experimenting. But what are you doing exactly in Mullet Mad Jack? Well, it's not a complicated plot, but I'm still going to read the synopsis of it off of Wikipedia because it puts it in a much funnier way than I could put it. The game is set in the year 2095, where robot billionaires have taken over the world and humans are addicted to dopamine. Players assume the role of Jack, a moderator. Moderators are basically mercenaries, hired by Peace Corp to rescue the influencer princess from a skyscraper filled with killer robots in exchange for a new pair of shoes. I'm gonna crease your mullet, Jack. Bet you thought I'd say J's. So the main gameplay loop of the game involves Jack going from floor to floor, fighting enemies to give himself extra seconds to live, then fighting a boss or special encounter of some sort every 10th floor. Oh right, seconds to live. Because the world runs on dopamine, or at least people are addicted to it now, Peace Corp's system operates based on likes. The more likes Jack gets, and by extension Peace Corp stream gets, the longer Jack gets to live, with a base cap of 10 seconds. But if he bores the audience by not doing anything, or by taking damage, he loses seconds and will die. So take a moment for a second and imagine your chat if you're a content creator of some sort, and imagine that the only way that you get to continue breathing is if people think you're entertaining enough. If you're your average person, you're fine. This is showcasing the game whenever the system goes down and Jack has to rely on his own life, which you get a lot of. But once you're hooked up to that system, you have to get those likes. Just imagine that for a second there. Scary, right? Would you trust your YouTube, Twitch, or Kick, or whatever chat with your life? Think about it. You should think about it. Moving away from the story, let's talk about the gameplay. I already mentioned earlier how you get different modifiers and whatnot per floor. Well, there are also permanent upgrades as well that you can earn whenever you beat a boss or a major encounter every 10th floor. This also comes with a checkpoint, so if you die, you don't have to start from the bottom again. Though I'd assume if you picked the permadeath setting, then you would, because that should be what the implication of permadeath is. You die on permadeath, you start from floor 1. Makes sense to me. But again, I didn't play on the difficulty. For all I know, I could be wrong. I'm just saying that's likely. Personally, I really like this system. But if that system doesn't appeal to you, again, there are other difficulty settings you can pick to tailor it towards your experience and what you would like out of the game. I don't have a lot to say about the gunplay, but it also feels very good and very responsive. Anytime I died, it was because of my potato aim rather than me fighting the controls. It's pretty straightforward, actually. You run forward, you see an enemy, pop him with a headshot, you got more time. If you have a disposable melee weapon, you use that, you get time. You purchase modifiers that modify how much more time you get back, you're coasting. Speaking of the difficulty, I was playing on challenge difficulty. That difficulty is filed under the normal along with the lenient option. The challenge difficulty was what the game said the developers intended for the game to be played like, so I started with that, and once again, it felt completely fair for as long as I was with it. I played on that difficulty up to floor 42, there are 80 floors total in the main mode, then moved it down to lenient just to give myself a breather to the end of the game. I will say though, I kind of wish I'd stayed on challenge difficulty because lenient may have been just too lenient for me. I'm not bragging, that's just my opinion. And again, the modifiers that I got oftentimes helped with that. So I guess you could also be in a position where lenient might be more difficult for you if you don't have modifiers that really help you all that much, at least not for the playstyle you're going for. The core difference between the challenge and lenient difficulty is that you technically get a larger health pool in lenient difficulty. In challenge, you only get 1 second per kill. Again, unless you have a modifier that changes that. Whereas in lenient difficulty, you get 2 seconds per kill. So you see where I'm going with this. On average, I was getting about 2 to 3 seconds per kill on challenge difficulty, and on lenient, I was getting about 3 to 4 seconds. But make no mistake, if you're careless on either difficulty, you will die. The game says it best before you even start playing. This game is about flow rather than speed. Paraphrased, but you get it. Going fast mindlessly is how you die. Overall, I had a great time with Mullet Mad Jack, and I think if you're the kind of person who can play this kind of game for even longer than I did, I think you'll get your money's worth out of it. Mullet Mad Jack is $20, which I think is a fair price for the whole package, endless mode included, but if you only want to play through the main campaign, then stop there. Then I'd say get on sale for maybe $10, maybe $15, but I think 20 is perfectly fine. Either way, if you're a fan of shooters, you should have this in your library. If you're a fan of roguelike games, you should have this in your library. If you're a fan of satirical one-liners, you should have this in your library. So yeah, Mullet Mad Jack gets a go for it and is available on PC, PS5, Nintendo Switch, and Xbox Series X and S. Now we're coming up on the last first-person shooter that I really want to talk about, at least for a few games. I wouldn't want to stack another 10 or so of those games after this next one, right? Nah, that'd be overkill. So I hope you've enjoyed your stay. I'm TUSDarryl, and I'll catch you guys in the next review. See you later.